What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Mint Hunter Comics, and these are my top 10 superhero movies. Superhero movie that I remember watching, believe it or not, was probably Blade. I don't know how the hell they let me watch that one, but since then I don't think I've missed a beat. I've probably seen every superhero or comic book inspired movie at least 10 times. So I think it's a wonderful thing that in this day and age we've got like 10 movies coming out every single year of my favorite genre there is. Spider-Man 2 is one I do remember seeing in theaters, directed by Sam Raimi, and I recently watched Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 over again. I thought that 1 is starting to show its age, whereas 2 still feels like it could have been made yesterday. Dr. Octopus being my favorite Spider-Man villain, maybe I was a little biased going into this one, but I love this era of Marvel movies, pre-MCU, where they decided to keep undercutting all their serious moments with jokes. This movie is much more raw, much more honest, and much more dangerous, I feel. You go on the journey with Peter and you feel what he feels, and all the terror feels very real in that movie. I also like that it is a smaller scale. There's no giant hole in the sky or anything crazy. It's got all the classic Sam Raimi eye shots and wonderful transitions that you would come to expect from him. And all in all, I think it's one of the most timeless movies of anything that's going to be on my list today. Watchman is a great movie, directed by Zack Snyder from 2009. This is one that I had the book as a kid, and maybe my brain wasn't fully developed, but it just wasn't one of my favorites. It was actually until I saw the movie that I had a renewed obsession with the characters and with the style that he shot it in. It made me revisit the book, which actually is now probably one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. I think he did a really great job adapting the movie, and I think that the liberties that were taken fit a more big screen selection much better than a comic book would. The decision to have a nuclear holocaust rather than a squid famine just fit the movie a little bit better. Unlike the rest of this list, I've seen every single movie probably at least 10 or 20 times. This one I've actually only seen 3 times. I'm trying to get the fiance to watch it, but it's a really long movie, so it's a little bit of an uphill battle. And I also have only ever seen the extended director's cut, which I have been told makes a bit of a difference. I think it's possibly the most underrated one on my list today. I also think it's a masterclass of casting. Unbreakable by M. Night Shyamalan. Hopefully I pronounced that right, no promises, I really don't know. This is an amazing movie that I think because of the recent movies such as Glass, people have been more made aware of this one. This movie went ignored for a while. I remember I used to talk about this movies and even my comic book friends had never heard of it. This is an early one. I think it's probably his best directed movie. I really like the fact that it didn't need Marvel or DC to back it. And it stood out during a time where you weren't getting a lot of superhero movies, and the ones you did get were not fantastic. It eventually got made retroactively, part 1 as a trilogy. I still think it stands best on its own and is the best of the 3. Great twist, great characters, great movie. Next up is X-Men Days of Future Past. This is the pre-Endgame movie. This is the first time heist, if you will. I was a big fan of the early 2000s X-Men movies, and when this one came out was when they had started going in the direction of the new X-Men, which I wasn't such a big fan of. This movie did a wonderful Star Trek-esque job of combining both worlds in a time-traveling story that I think stands toe-to-toe with that of Endgame. I think it is the crown achievement from Bryan Singer in his X-Men movies, and it is the one that I've watched probably about 30 times. Also, here's another example of one where the extended cut helps it. I also think they made me enjoy the younger cast much more than I did in First Class in that movie. The violence in that movie, too, was so striking as it seemed like they were really pushing a barrier. In terms of Marvel movies, it is one of the darker ones out there, and as a DC Vertigo fan, you know that that's going to resonate with me. That is also one of the entries on the list where I probably wouldn't change a thing, and I love the ending. Next up is Sin City, actually directed by Frank Miller, adapted from Frank Miller. Now, what I love so much about this one is the absolute art house style. It reads almost as a comic book, and I think it is one of the best cast movies I've ever seen. I think it's Mickey Rourke's best film. I think it's one of Bruce Willis's best films. I am sort of the weird Sin City prophet. This is one that I always try to get people to watch because a lot of people missed it. It is probably also the most comic book style movie you've ever seen. How it's structured, how it's laid out, how it has chapters, it literally feels like you're reading a comic book. It's incredible. No other movie quite captures that same graphic novel feel that I think Sin City does. Fun fact, Quentin Tarantino actually did a little directing on that as well. Iron Giant is one of those anomaly movies where it's not connected to Marvel, DC. Most people don't even know that it is an adaptation at all. And despite its Disney-esque style, I believe it's not even Disney. Forget Fox and the Hound. If you want to cry, you'll watch Iron Giant. Men weep over this one. Voice acting is incredible. The feel and the vibe of the movie is magnificent. I'm a sucker for father and son themes, and this movie and the relationship he has with the giant robot are unparalleled. Somehow, even though they're not similar at all, somehow it reminds me of The Last of Us. The movie really leaves you with such a strong message of found unconditional love and family. I think it's one of the most effective, heartwarming, and heart-wrenching animated movies that exist. Guardians of the Galaxy is the only movie I ever saw 3 times in the theaters. You have to understand that with this movie, the movies that came before were dry and often generically action-adventure focused. It didn't incorporate a goofy element, and most people also forget that Guardians is a satire of comic book movies. So when the movie came out, it was one of the most refreshing, palate-cleansing movies you've ever seen in an entire genre. I do have a controversial opinion that it both saved and ruined the MCU. I think that it saved the MCU from getting into boring movies, but what it sacrificed is every movie that came after Guardians did try to copy a bit and unfortunately ushered in the era of all the bathos and getting all your serious moments undercut with jokes.
Are you Tony Stank?
Yes, this is Tony Stank.
I like when Guardians does it. I don't like when the Avengers do it. So I say both thank you to Guardians of the Galaxy and also let's keep that at Guardians. Volume 2 and 3 were wonderful. They brought a lot to the table, but there's nothing like that first movie. Winning by a landslide, that's the winner. The Incredibles. Sorry, not sorry for having this on this list. Unlike all the entries on this list, this is truly the only one where nothing can be changed. It is a perfect movie from start to end. Balancing a large cast of characters? Check. Superhero characters that you can see yourself in? Check. Excellent pacing and forward momentum? Check. A surprising amount of rich world building? Check. I think there's simply no other better movie that quite encapsulate what a superhero movie should be all about. And while I like the movies that redefine the genre, in sticking to the basics, Incredibles has it all. Into the Spiderverse is, in my eyes, the best Spider-Man movie there is. One of the things I think that works so well for it is it was designed for comic fans. The casual viewer might have had some trouble with it. It's not a simple storyline. It's incredibly unique and complex with multiple worlds and multiple characters, all being Spider-Man. As we're entering an era where the multiverse is becoming a more common known phenomenon in movies and TV, this one kind of did it first. Such a unique art style, wonderful voice acting, and wonderful pace, and some legitimately good laughs out of it. That is one that, while it's only a 5-year-old movie, I've probably seen about 20 times. It's risky making a non-Peter Parker Spider-Man focused movie during a time when Miles Morales wasn't so much a household name as he is today. And that's what's so great about it, the amount of sheer risk from the art style, from the characters they chose to portray, from the themes. Quite honestly, I don't know how they got this pitch off the ground, but I'm so glad Sony went with it. I'm really looking forward to the second movie, but even if that one's a flop, we're always going to have Into the Spider-Verse. Final entry I'm giving you is a two-way tie. Batman Begins and Dark Knight. Everyone says Dark Knight, but truly you have to know that Batman Begins walked so the Dark Knight could run.
Where are you?
Here.
And while The Dark Knight I've probably seen, no joke, maybe 200 times, it's a movie that every time it's on TV, I have to sit down and watch it. I know the entire movie blindfolded. I could quote it to you. Batman Begins is one of the strongest superhero origin story style movies that have been made. Possible bias because I like Scarecrow, Ra's al Ghul, and the League of Assassins, but I do think that they did a wonderful job with unique twists and such wonderful world building in that movie that made it possible for The Dark Knight to even happen. When I watch the trilogy, I don't always watch 1, 2, and 3, but you bet your ass I'm watching at least 1 and 2. I like how they captured Gotham. I like how they captured Arkham. I love how they captured the legacy of Batman. I've never seen a movie before or to this day that still understands what the Batman is about quite like that movie. Understanding the legacy and what the importance of that symbol is must go to Batman Begins. The only thing that bugs me is the Rachel recasting, but what are you gonna do? I feel pretty strongly about these 10. If you were to ask me on a different day, maybe they'd be switched up in a different order, but a lot of these I think are either perfect or right on that line, some of them very underrated, and while there's too many honorable mentions to quite list here, I only had one MCU movie on this entire list. These are the ones I'm sticking to. Pop in the comments down below what you think your top 3 are, and I will see you at the next video. Keep on hunting. Make sure to come down to Sentiment Depot Antiques and Collectibles, where I'm set up with all of my comics, located at 238 West Delaware Ave, Pennington, New Jersey. Open every day except for Monday and Tuesday. Enjoy 10% off from Wednesday to Friday. See you there.